So welcome to our webinar, Planning an Effective Sales Kickoff. January and February are prime SKOs, and whether you're well into the planning process or haven't started yet, we hope this session will help calm your nerves and make prep simpler. And to answer the first question that we've had come in, yes, attendees are on mute, so do not worry. And please do use chat to communicate. All right, so in this session, we will be covering 5 major topics. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask in chat or in the Q&A function of Zoom. Where the questions make sense, we will answer them during the discussion, and otherwise we will hold them until the end. We'll also be running a few poll questions, and we are very excited to see the results of those. So now I am very pleased to introduce you to 2 women I've had the immense honor of working with directly, Heather Mahendran and Samantha Strom. Heather, why don't you go first and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Leah. Well, thank you for inviting me to join. I currently work at Pantheon, a web ops platform that helps Drupal and WordPress developers host and manage the scaling of web presence. So I started here this past year and I run sales enablement.
Great. And Sam, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Sam Strom and I work at Unity Technologies. Unity is the most widely used real-time 3D development platform. You might know us from gaming, since that's what we started out as, but we've expanded into other industries such as M&E and the industrial verticals as well. So we are a global team.
Very cool. So I think it would probably help if we start by talking about how our SKOs at each of these companies are kind of set up, the size of the company, who attended or who will attend. So you can see it a little bit here, but Sam, Heather, why don't you go a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, so our company is a bigger startup and we are global. So we're having everyone from APAC, EMEA, and America come into one place for our sales kickoff. We're going to be including both sales and marketing. So it's kind of like go-to-market kickoff, but we're still calling it SKO.
Great. Heather?
And we are a mostly US-based company. The majority of our sales team is here in San Francisco. Our kickoff will include both our sales and marketing team and what we call our customer success team. So the team that onboards and supports the implementation of our customers will also be coming to our event in January.
Great.
So it's about 100 people or so that will be at the event.
And at Guru this year, for the first time, we are doing really a go-to-market kickoff, not cook-off, I wish, that, you know, the entire company will be coming to in and around the Philadelphia area. Which is where we are based, though I'm based in San Francisco. All right. So I think the first thing that we really want to talk about is kind of the most important thing that everything rolls back up to, which is determining the goal of your SKO. So the question that you really want to ask yourself is, what is your top line goal with this year's SKO? And this year being the operative phrase there, really, because that is what you're focusing on. So I think we're going to launch our first poll while we start to talk and give everyone about 30 seconds to answer. But while we are waiting for that, Sam, why don't you talk about what the goal for your SKO at Unity is this year?
So our goal is really around alignment, making sure that the sales team is aligned with themselves and the sales team is aligned with the marketing team, just so all the messaging is right and everyone is going out, you know, having everything they need for the entire year. So we're hoping to have obviously quotas delivered before then, accounts assigned before then, so that we can really use the kickoff as like, let's get everybody super pumped for the year. And then they'll be able to learn everything that they need in that session or in those sessions during that week and to do their job for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And Heather, can you tell us a little bit about what yours is?
Yeah, so this year we're doing a lot around our customer and our customer journey. So, it's a big initiative for us, and we'll use this time while we're all together to level set on the phases of our journey and get aligned cross-functionally. So since we have a lot of teams that don't work together all the time in person, we will do some cross-functional activities, as well as, like Sam said, it's so important to use this time to really celebrate the successes you had in 2019 or this past year, and then the vision and strategy and goals for 2020. You want people to feel like they're on a team that's going to win, and they have the tools and support to accomplish their goals.
Yeah, and especially I think as it relates to expanding a team going forward, it is great to have kind of alignment and forward momentum before you even approach that. Is it tough, do you think, for folks who join right after an SKO, or are you able to kind of make sure that since everyone is already kind of right in alignment after SKO, is it easy for the new folks to join at that point, do you think?
So we've hired our sales organization has grown a tremendous amount this past year. So this is ideally we'd get people hired before the event, just so everyone hears the same messaging and could actually meet in person, especially for those newbies, to get a sense of the culture and where we're going. If they're not there, of course, we help them on board, but I think it's a great opportunity if you can hire in time for the event, just to welcome new employees to the organization. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. And then it's also easier too onboarding after that, because everything's already been set up and you know like where you're going for the year, what everything looks like, what the sales plays are. So it kind of lends itself to have some like digital onboarding and content in our knowledge bases too.
Great. So I think a really interesting way of framing this goal question is, what do you want your team or teams to be able to do at the end of this SKO? And I think that is probably a good way of going into your planning sessions as a very kind of directive question, a little bit more specific than saying like, what is your goal? But hopefully it can help you when you're planning it, tie everything back together. So I think let's talk a little bit about a big question, which is preventing information overload. So before you plan your content, make sure the structure of your SKO allows for maximum engagement. And we know that a ton of information is thrown at people when they're at an SKO or a QBR or any multi-day, multi-session event. So what we really want to talk about right now are how do you make sure that this expense and time that you are putting towards this event, like how do you make sure that people get the most out of it that they can? So I think there are 4 things here that we've discussed as a group and that we are going to dive into right now. So I think the first one really is about your location. So I'm going to launch another poll while we talk. This one is your SKO done outside of your office? So feel free to answer while Sam and Heather and I talk about how we structure ours. So Sam, do you bring everyone together and know that you're a huge company, and do you have it on site at one specific office, at multiple offices? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we had to take consideration for all three geos, and we really want to make sure that we're not just an America centric company. So we picked Europe as kind of a central location. It's easier for people in Asia to get there. The people in EMEA don't have to travel as far, and then people in America, we usually do things over here, so it's not that bad for us to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing it in one location. We're doing it for 4.5 days. So everyone's going to be traveling in on the Sunday, arriving Monday, and then we go into sessions Monday afternoon. So before the jet lag really hits, but we try to take into account, okay, Asia has to come a really long way. How are we going to do that? And really trying to have like a lot of empathy for everyone who is coming from all around the world. And then we selected a location that can do everything in one place, because it's kind of like, planning a wedding. You don't want people to have to like go off site for different things. You lose a lot of people that way. So having everything contained in one place where you can have food and your drinks and everything with a bunch of breakout sessions is the way we've gone.
And Heather, I know you're at a much smaller organization, as am I, compared to Unity. Where do you guys get together, if in fact you all get together in one place?
We are doing it together, because I think it's important, especially since a lot of our organization is based in San Francisco. We're doing the event offsite about an hour outside of San Francisco. So even those SF-based employees will be like on site at the event, and you don't think about it that much, but it's those conversations that happen at breakfast or after the day is done that really help soak the information in, and I think really help people to build relationships outside of their comfort zone or the people they interact with daily. So if you can do it, there's really a lot of value in it.
There's definitely something to be said for kind of in-person FaceTime out, and the converse of that is outside of the office, because not only does it kind of place everyone on a level playing field, it gives you the opportunity to actually have a conversation outside of work with people that you might only really usually interact with during a work conference call. And so I think, is it fair to say from your perspective that that the social aspect is an incredibly important one at an SKO, that it's not just about kind of learning new sales strategies. It is, the alignment part is really kind of a social issue.
Yeah, I would say even if you're not able to leave the city that you're in, just doing the event, there's a ton of event space or conference rooms that you can rent by the hour. Even just that, getting into a different space, I think helps people mentally be more present. To your second point of being social, yeah, it's just very important to have engaging activities, whether they're actually like a scavenger hunt, team building, or just having people sit together in different groups. It's the social aspects really important. Why do we come to work every day? It's definitely partially because of the work, but it's also because of the people. So,
and I think that brings us right into the second way to do this, which is to craft new cohorts. I know, as personally, I always get quite irritated when I am given an assigned seat and I have to meet new people, but at the end I always find it super valuable because it gives me insight into new aspects of the organization, new people that I wouldn't normally have an opportunity to interact with. So Sam or Heather, whoever would like to take this question, how do you kind of go about creating those new seating arrangements, such as they are, and what kind of factors do you consider?
I like to have a mix of people kind of you don't want to just have the same people from the same team, because you're not going to get as much conversation and sharing ideas and having fun and kind of that uncomfortable feeling that like kind of spurs connection between people. So I like to have a mix of the roles and the geos at different tables. Sometimes it can be hard because of language barriers, but I think that it's still super important because you don't want everyone just siloed in their own places. And so what I like to do is I like to have seating assignments at a table. And we do this for boot camp too, where everybody is kind of mixed, and that is your team for the week. And whatever scavenger hunts or polls during the session, all your projects kind of are done with that group. So you really get to know those people. And that's also why it's important to make sure that those people are not folks that you normally work with every day. Because then you can also, it also will facilitate your job in the new year or like for the rest of the year, because you'll be like, oh, I remember this person mentioned this and they might have an idea about it, or they've gone through this before. I'm going to reach out to them. So it kind of widens your social circle as well.
And then as it relates specifically to kind of balancing and preventing information overload, let's talk a little bit about incentives. You know, we're all marketers or salespeople. We love engagement. So, I mean, as we've been doing during this webinar right now, we've been asking poll questions, but let's talk a little bit about really giving people incentives to take part in sessions and ask questions. Is it about, you know, kind of stimulating that dopamine, giving them a chance to kind of win a little bit and, you know, participate? And how do you really kind of structure that over the course of several days? Like, do you have small giveaways over the course of a few days? Do you have, you know, a big prize at the end that someone can win raffle tickets for? Talk a little bit about how you, you know, kind of the question here, incentivize. Heather, why don't you go first?
Well, I think it's important to have incentives. I mean, sales people, we all are competitive, and if there's some aspect of, you know, competition, I think it's helpful or incentivizing. I think I mentioned to you when we last spoke, like I did a raffle where people would get tickets for asking questions or making comments helpful. And it wasn't actually the prize that people wanted as much as, like, I think it's this recognition that they got throughout the few days of the event. And to touch on the last point about having people cross-functionally sit together, I think one thing that really helps facilitate this is having sort of team leads or table leads, even if they're not like recognized outwardly, just seeding information with particular leaders to help encourage either socializing at the table or participation, like setting a role model essentially within small cohorts to really make sure that everyone's aligned and continuously paying attention is always a great idea.
Yeah, Sam, at a larger organization, is this kind of a scalable thing?
Definitely. Yeah. I think, well, all salespeople are like super competitive, right? So you have to play into that. Also, we start off as a gaming company. So for us, it's kind of built into the DNA where you have to make everything fun. And we don't give out swag that often. So our sales kickoff is a time to get swag, just because we're just not a very swag heavy company, which is different from some of the other companies I've worked at before. So I kind of like the winning small things like swag or whatever it is, and then winning something big, like for the table that answers the most questions correctly by the end of the week. I like to do something like that so that it can be something you're working up toward, but then you're also getting little hits along the way.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes it fun too. And especially if it's like relevant, if you have external speakers coming in or different departments coming in, it can be themed around them, and you can kind of leverage them for budget too. So it doesn't all have to be on you. Yeah, so I like all of that. And I also like to start off with Heather mentioned a scavenger hunt, but to bond kind of the tables together when you get there so that it's a fun social thing, especially because it's kind of like the first day of school. Everyone's kind of uncomfortable and awkward, and it kind of neutralizes all of that because you're kind of all in it together.
Yes, I would add one other thing is that it's really important to start the energy of the day on a high note, because you ultimately, it's like a concert. If you ever go to a concert, the band will always come out with not their like most popular song, but it's like something that gets the crowd going. And I think that's the same with these sorts of events. Just a warm-up exercise or something to get, even playing music, just to get people going in the morning really can help set the tone for the day.
Yeah. We had a note come in to the panelists from Des saying that they do Kahoot quizzes. I'm not familiar with Kahoot personally, but I do know that like any kind of real-time polling or quizzing is a wonderful way to keep people engaged. Just, you know, it gives them kind of an instant way of giving feedback, and it's, you know, a lot of fun personally.
It can also help direct the conversation. Like if you're noticing people aren't retaining the information or something else, you can get up and do a stretch break, or you can be like, hey, maybe we're not talking to the right audience, and you can kind of adjust your content too. So it's good for the session leaders as well.
And while we're on the subject of some fun stuff, I think let's talk about the balance here. I think a lot of times people associate SKOs with two things, which are really heavy informational sessions and evening parties. But our party is really the only way to go. I know here at Guru, we've done stuff like trivia nights, bowling, and, you know, just like individual team dinners that, you know, give us a little bit more of an opportunity to chat or show off our competitive sides, just beyond drinking. Though parties are super fun too. So what do you guys do, especially when you're out of the office, if you're potentially all in a different city? What are the kinds of things that you can do to help people blow off some steam and give them some kind of mental time to absorb everything that you've presented to them?
Well, we are going to do some fireside chats with the founders and some of the executives who the sales team doesn't hear from a lot. So then we'll go from there to happy hours so that people can kind of still get a little bit of that culture and slowly transition into the evening. And then it can also set the tone for the evening so it doesn't get too wild and crazy. But I love the idea that you had about trivia. I think we're going to do something like that if we can get it together. Yeah, those are kind of the things that we'll do. And then obviously making sure that there is enough food and beverages and, you know, adult beverages along with waters and things like that, just to keep things fun, but not like out of control.
Yeah. It looks like the bulk of you who have voted in our latest poll, sorry for not announcing it, so far, do include fun sessions as part of your SKO. That's wonderful. I mean, I would say if your SKO is like one day, it's maybe not super necessary. If it's a multi-day event, you definitely need kind of a structured way to break things up. We do have a question that is coming in. The question is, are there any fun videos you have started an SKO with to get people excited and laughing? And then the note, I once attended an SKO with a Gary Vee video that was funny. So Sam or Heather, have either of you had experience with like choosing a specific kind of media to get everyone pumped, and, you know, whether it's custom or like a scene from The Office? What do you guys go to?
I haven't done that. I think it's a great idea. We've had session leaders do that. Like one started his session by showing a video of him playing the banjo for like 3 minutes. It was a little long, but it was really funny because he was our head of sales. So it also kind of humanized him and it made it kind of funny. And then like all the salespeople would have something to talk to him about afterwards. But I love that idea of doing a clip at the beginning. I might have to take that.
Yeah, I think that I've never done the video at the beginning, but there's a ton of value in changing up the medium. So whether it's like someone speaking or doing a fireside chat or a panel, and then a video, just to change the the energy keeps people engaged. So you can do a lot of breaks and that's helpful. But I think if you do presentations mixed with some activities, videos, sorts of things can be a great way to keep people involved.
I will say that also at Guru, like we're a very music-centric company, despite we're a knowledge management company, but we are all addicted to music. It is, you know, our founders are big into the Philly music scene. For us, I know we often have like custom playlists that are played before sessions. It's a really nice way to bring us back to kind of like who we are as a culture. And also expose people to cool tunes. But it's, you know, if you're having trouble finding a way to integrate it into your company culture, think about, if you can, some of the things that make your culture unique, and find a way to implement that if you can. So with that, I think let's talk about structuring those daytime sessions. And I think this is the key part, again, not to forget what your goal is with the SKO. And that is mostly because, you know, you can find amazing speakers. You know, you can hire pretty much anyone. But the question is, again, what do you want people to be able to do at the end, right? So if you want to hire a great storyteller, please go ahead by all means, but make sure that it is in some way relevant to what you're presenting. And as you start to think about the structure of the full, you know, 1 to 3 to 4 day experience, you don't want it to just be kind of keynote after keynote, or, you know, one-on-one interview after one-on-one interview. I think it's really important to be able to change things up. So Sam and Heather, whoever would like to go first, can you talk a little bit about your approach to this? I mean, I know, Sam, you mentioned fireside chats, but you know, what else do you have as part of your daytime session?
We have the executives coming in. It is going to be a lot of content, but then also making sure that you give enough time for people to get a break in between those sessions, and having healthy snacks along with the sugary things, because the sugary things are great for like that short-term boost, but then you crash. So making sure there's like healthy options. And what else do? We just try to keep it fun most of the time too, like making sure that the content is not too heavy. It's all really important stuff, and we're all trying to get to the same place for next year, right? We're all trying to sell more and make it easier for our sales team to sell more. And I think in doing that, the content that you create should kind of be lighthearted and fun. And obviously some of it's really serious because you're talking about quotas and people's paychecks and all of these things. But you can make it fun and through a lot of different ways. So those are kind of some of the things we do. I'm definitely going to do that trivia idea. And then you can also do scavenger hunts that go throughout the week. Mm-hmm. So during breaks, they can try to collect like you have to take a picture with your whole group and whatever icon or like a landmark or something like that. So you can make things fun so that people can get out, stretch their legs a little bit, and then come back into the room.
Yeah. Heather?
Yeah, I was going to say that one of the adult learning theories says something like adults want to apply whatever they learned in that moment, like as soon as possible, or to their world. So when you work with your presenters or whomever is creating session content, you know, continuously reminding them, okay, is everyone in the room, is this beneficial to everyone in the room at all the different roles? And if not, how can we make it so that they can also apply it to their life as it stands in the role of their job? And then I would say, yeah, like have if you have a keynote, you know, have presenters ask the audience questions, or break out at their tables and brainstorm over something, and have the speaker then call on people to give what they came up with. That just keeps everyone on their toes. It's like, you know, going to school. If you thought you were going to be called on, you definitely paid attention a little bit more. And then I would say we do a lot of deal reviews. Actually, we found that people, they like both deal won and deal lost, but the most value comes from collaborating around real world examples, like a deal that we didn't win and why not, and what we could have done differently. So bringing people up, not the maybe top line contributors, but everyone into the different sessions can be really engaging.
I would say one of the things that I found to be terrifically interesting in our SKOs, we bring customers on site, and we usually have the salesperson who worked with them do a one-on-one interview. Everyone does get a chance to ask questions, but it's kind of fascinating to hear, you know, how people reacted, how they brought it back to their their execs, their champions, and you know what made the difference, what made them choose us over over our competitors. So there's a lot of different ways to do it beyond just talking about theory, I think, is the important thing that we're talking about here. I am going to go to the next slide, and I'm also going to, while everyone gets a chance to read that, I want to read the question that just came into Q&A, because I think that it's a really important one for everyone who is planning an SKO to consider. So the question is, I'm the only sober person who will be at our SKO and want to ensure that we have events that don't solely revolve around alcohol, since I'm in recovery, but also don't want to make everyone else feel like they can't drink or feel like the post-SKO social time isn't as fun. Any advice on this?
I have advice. Sorry, you can go, Leah.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is a great opportunity. This idea of sending out a pre-SKO survey, just so that you're not working in the dark, I think it's also a really great opportunity to ask for anonymous feedback like this to help plan events. So definitely encourage everyone to try and get feedback before you go into the planning session altogether. But yes, Sam, please do take over.
I've been sober for 7 years, so this is something that I've dealt with a lot, and it gets more comfortable over time. I think nobody's really going to be paying attention to whether or not you're drinking. You can be at trivia, and everyone can be drinking, and you don't have to be drinking. And that's what I do. And then I usually cut out a little earlier, like a lot earlier than everyone else, from the evening sessions, and I don't feel like I miss out because I feel better in the morning. And things start getting weird after a certain hour anyway, like when you're out with your coworkers. So it actually might save you some embarrassment, like that they might be facing too. So that's also everyone like who is attending and planning an SKO, something to keep in mind too, that things can get a little weird after like 10. So I think if you're just like confident in that, you should be fine. And there should be plenty to do that. You're not just drinking. And then, somebody else just said something about a volunteering activity in the questions. We did that last year where we had an hour on 2 days of volunteering time where we made cards for elderly. So you can partner with a volunteer organization, and that can also be something that you don't have to booze for.
Yeah, the question, I'll read out the question so everyone can see it or hear it. We've organized some mass volunteer activities as well. It takes the drinking aspect right out of it. And I mean, I guess I should also say, for those of you who are actually planning the SKO, make sure that you are giving yourselves time to rest. You're the ones who are running it in most cases. And, you know, that you're going to have a very different experience with it than the average attendee. So make sure you're giving yourself some time to breathe, to drink water, and just to relax a little bit more than those who are there, you know, just strictly in a learning capacity. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. And so now let's talk about choosing speakers, because we touched on this a little bit in what we were just discussing. And apologies for the repetitive slide a little bit. But really just want to hammer home that this should all roll back up into your goal. And when choosing speakers, they should certainly be a mix of internal and external voices. You know, I think if you want to balance, if you're on a multi-day thing, maybe balance keynotes between an internal and external person, or a customer, as I mentioned. But I'm going to launch poll number 4, the last and final poll. Do you include customer interviews? So we're going to chat while you guys start to answer. So Sam and Heather, why don't you go first this time? How do you kind of choose a mix? Who from your kind of organization is guaranteed a slot to speak, and you know, what kind of gaps do you then have to fill?
My internally.
Mm-hmm.
So based on feedback from previous events, heard that our teams wanted to hear more from our executives who happen to be founders for us. So they will both, 2 of them will speak at the upcoming event. And then I think if the focus is your sales team or your go-to-market team, it's important to have those leaders really come and endorse why you're there and the importance of the event. I'd say that, like, for us, our chief revenue officer is going to come speak. And then because we have an initiative around our customer journey, you know, the leader in those teams is going to come speak. So you have this excitement, celebration of what we've accomplished and setting the vision for the year internally, at least in the large audience when everyone's involved.
Yeah. Sam, you guys have quite a long SKO since it's a week, since you have all of the travel. So I guess you have the opportunity for multiple kind of keynote sessions. How do you balance it?
So I've mainly done internal, just because having a global organization, you don't get to hear, like, people in APAC don't get to hear as much of the town halls as, you know. So we really like to keep it a lot internal. We have done some things where you bring an external speaker on site to do like sales methodology rollout or things like that. Sometimes it can not go super well, just because if the culture doesn't match up, because at least for our organization, you have to think about the 3 different cultures really, and there's like multiple cultures within those. So making sure that things aren't too like Americanized, where it's like sell, because I have heard feedback on those before, like when you bring in like a sales trainer, that it can be overwhelming and people can see it as a waste of time. So I think there's like a balance that you have to play, and it really has to just determine, like, if you do want those external voices. I know Heather mentioned that she had somebody come on site who I've seen speak before, who's awesome, but like more of a motivational speaker. Not to speak for you, Heather, but I thought that kind of stuff was great, because she's not cheesy either.
I don't want to interrupt you, Sam.
No, that it's for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think the main thing you should think about is what you want the takeaway from that external speaker to be. So there are a ton of great customers that we can have come to our, not this event, but like they can have come to your event. But do you want an enterprise customer who can speak to the brand or do you want someone who is less known company but is more familiar with each of your teams? Like, what is the message that you want them to deliver, and make sure that you prep them ahead of time, or just give them a sense for that, because you never know how it might go, and you don't want it to be misaligned with the overall message of your event.
Yeah, or too much corporate jargon or anything like that.
Also, I would think about we all have different strengths, right? And some people are better storytellers than others, and making sure that the format of whoever the speaker is or the panel really is aligned with their strengths.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. And I will say, during our prep session for this webinar, Sam actually said this note about when choosing speakers. Are you motivating people to take on the world or teaching them new sales methodologies? I think this goes back to the just because you can book someone doesn't mean you necessarily should. If the goal here is to align everyone to a new sales methodology that you're going to be rolling out that year, maybe skip the person who climbed Mount Everest. However, if your goal is really just, if you're not making any major kind of methodology changes and your goal is to really hype people up, book that Everest speaker, right?
Think about who's going to resonate most with your teams. I mean, is this a message that should come from an external speaker because they're the expert and that's who your audience is really going to listen to and get validation from? Or would that message be better served coming from the sales leader? It's important to think about that too.
Oh geez, my mouse is going nuts. So I think since we're at about 45 minutes in, so I wanted to make sure that we talk about what happens after an SKO is over. Because an SKO, like I said here, is once or twice a year for 1 to 4 days. What happens to the other 360 days of a year, give or take business days? So this is really about ensuring that, you know, the goal that you set for yourself is not just attainable a week after the SKO, but until the next one. So in terms of reinforcing knowledge, how do you guys like to do it? I know here at Guru, we use our own product. We have all of our learnings in Guru. We use a combination of knowledge alerts and knowledge triggers to make sure that they are, you know, always being surfaced, always being pushed to us. But there are a lot of different ways to do this, and I'm very conscious of that. So, you know, we could talk a little bit about running occasional certifications or, you know, talking at a town hall to resurface some of the takeaways that you learned. But what, you know, how do you guys do it? Since you're both in enablement, what is your methodology? I'll make Sam go first this time.
Okay, I'll go first. So we are onboarding Guru right now. This has been kind of a challenge for us because we've been using Google Docs and all these other places and haven't really had any certification in place. So right now we're also onboarding WorkRamp for our LMS solution. We're using it for our resellers for certifications and hoping to bring it on for the direct seller program so that we have a way to track people's participation, where they're at in the onboarding journey, and then the ongoing continued education portion. So from our sales kickoff and beyond, we're going to be doing certifications at least every quarter, if not more. We're going to make sure that we have one for every sales play. And then, yeah, just making sure that everyone is aligned. And then the one thing that for me, when I was looking at technology to onboard for this, is to make sure that it talks to one another. So for me, Guru and WorkRamp, they have an integration, and it also integrates with some of the other tools we use like Slack and our Google Drive and other places content might live. So for me, that was super important to make sure that it's really easy for the admins to do this on the back end because there's a heavy lift here for the sales enablement folks to make sure that all of this is happening. And same for marketing. If marketing makes your materials, which they do for us at Unity. So that's those are some things that were really important to me when trying to figure this out.
Heather, how does Pantheon approach this kind of ongoing knowledge?
Yeah, I would say the themes or the high level focus areas that we roll out or talk to at our event are definitely going to be pulled through throughout the year. We use Guru to share both like presentations and videos or recordings, but also help crowdsource like examples of sponsored letters or, you know, decks that sales reps use. For me, one of the most valuable features is the verification. I am not the expert. I will never be the expert. I rely on subject matter experts to curate I just sort of curate the content. And so having the ability to set verification for the right person to confirm the content is critical. So we're not just leaving things in there from 2015, right? It's constantly being refreshed, and that's huge for me because I have been at other organizations and tried to manage those resources, and it's not fun or accurate. So.
We are going to open it up to questions in just a moment. Wanted to give everyone the opportunity, and we will be sending this out in our follow-up email tomorrow, but would love, now that everything is top of mind, and as Heather just mentioned, you may want to use this immediately. Wanted to share with you the framework that we use here at Guru when we're planning our SKO or CKO, as we were doing this year. So please feel free to access this card. The bit.ly is capital SKO, lowercase checklist, or you can wait until tomorrow and we'll be sending it out. And many thanks to my colleague, Julia Safa, who actually put this together. So with that in mind, question time. So feel free to post here in the chat or in the Q&A function. I see we have one. So let me answer it. Well, I can try. As you all know, SKOs give you a lot of information, or at SKOs, you give a lot of information to the teams. I know y'all talked about Guru, but how do you ensure that they are using the branding, wording, et cetera, over the year? So I will say at Guru that we have all of our brand guidelines in Guru, and we, make an effort to set up our knowledge triggers to push all of that to us at relevant times. But curious as to how Sam and Heather approach it.
So the question is, just to confirm, how do we confirm that the reps are using the branding and wording from Guru, or for
I mean, I think it's about using like the correct branding and wording that you may be presenting to them at SKO throughout the year.
Oh, okay. Well, so I think that the pop-ups, the AI capability it's amazing. So if they're looking for specific scripts or are talking to a certain vertical, they can find that information quickly. We also use Chorus, so that you can go back and listen or actually search for words or phrases within the transcript of calls, which is a valuable tool, and SalesLoft, or a tool that helps automate, email messaging. So I think those are some of the tools that we also use to support our messaging and how we target certain audiences.
I mean, is this also an opportunity to, like with quarterly certifications, is that a good opportunity to kind of refresh everyone's mind on the right words and phrases to use as well?
Yeah, definitely. Having the certification is super important. And then depending on what LMS system you have, you can have recordings. And so like the salespeople can record themselves on Zoom, and you can do certifications that way too, so that you can actually see how they're pitching things. Or you can have them record calls through Chorus or Gong, or even just on their Zoom. They can record calls, and you can have them submit those as well, so that you can just check randomly to see what people are doing. And then I think you can also see like if people are in the top quadrant of like performing versus the lower part. You'll probably want to check probably the people who are struggling to see if maybe the messaging isn't right. So you can kind of look at things that way.
So we had a number of questions just come in. I am going to go slightly out of order, just so, because I think this is thematic to what we were just talking about. Do you do the certifications at SKO? So Sam, I saw you shake your head.
I don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some pre-certification just to make sure everyone is coming in with the baseline in like knowledge, the foundational stuff, and then we'll do it probably at the end of SKO and give some people time. That's what we're looking at right now. But it's usually after SKOs when I do the certification. Okay. I don't know, Heather, when do you do it?
So throughout the year, we'll run, like if we have we'll roll something out, say at SKO, but then it's usually more tactical certification and role-based, whether it be like we want reps to practice presenting pricing in a certain way, or yeah, we'll roll out a training and then like, okay, now that you've gone through this, the assessment is certification, like a recording of themselves that either their manager or a series of people will rate based on certain characteristics.
Great. So typically how far in advance do you start planning? I suspect the answers here will vary widely. And I think we can distinguish between how things are actually working and what best practices are. So
I can speak to this. I think the planning, the timing really depends on the event itself. I mean, for Sam, having many more international employees, the things that are important to plan, maybe similar to wedding planning, is just getting the save the date out there, a venue, and the key components of the logistics, and then from there, the themes, the focus. It's sort of a trickle down effect.
Wedding planning being top of mind as all three of us got married this year. But yes, totally agree.
Well, and then, like, for example, just build in extra time. The holidays, end of year, you never want your reps having to do pre-work at the the last weeks of the quarter. And I think it's just important to consider when your quarter ends are, and when people will be expected or focused on their pipeline and finishing those out when planning everything.
We have a question. How do you go about getting C-suite buy-in and alignment for your SKO?
That is a tough question. That it takes a lot of time, and working with the sales leads and the heads of sales and managers and everyone, and making sure that the message, because really as a sales enablement person, you're just kind of a conduit and you're a messenger for the sales team. So the way that I did it this year is we all got into a room with the heads of sales and our CRO, and we all just kind of talked about why it was important, what they were kind of willing to give up for this. So like there was some negotiation back and forth. And yeah, but ultimately I think when you're trying to be competitive in the marketplace for talent, it's really important to communicate that message and why it's important to the executives. So really having a strong message when you go in to the executive teams about why it's so important, and what other companies are doing, not so that you're like, oh, we want to do this because so-and-so is doing it. It's just to lay out the facts, like, hey, this is something that is important to salespeople, and here's what other people are doing, and then just showing the ROI that you can get from it. I think ROI is super important too.
Heather?
Yeah, so I would say the approach I take is I think it's important to clearly identify who your main stakeholders are, and make sure that they're all agreeing with that alignment, and the roles and responsibilities that will be supporting you. I think that there's a lot of assumptions, or sometimes there can be communication that happens that maybe doesn't trickle up. And so level setting in the beginning as to, okay, what the top priorities are, and what resources will be assigned to the logistics, the content from an early time will help you in the long run.
So I think we're going to take these two final questions, and then perhaps if there are any others, we can follow up via email. So the question number one is, how do you in enablement follow up after an SKO? Sometimes when introducing a new method or training skill, how does enablement get involved in making sure the team is using the new method or training skill? How involved are the sales managers?
So good. I mean, our job is to curate content and bring people together, and sort of like put the pieces of the puzzle together. Ultimately, at least in my experience, unless you get validation or support from the top, but also buy-in from the managers, it's going to be really hard to reinforce a new methodology or a process. I find that you kind of have to get everyone aligned before you go into the program itself and make sure that they find it valuable, because ultimately that's what we want. We don't want it to be rolling out a new method or training on a skill that our managers don't think is needed or valuable.
Mm-hmm. Sam, did you have anything to add, or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And then, okay, the final question is, how do you appeal to roles such as TSEs or support to make sure they understand why the SKO is important for them as well? Or what are ways that you have made sure that other customer-facing teams that are not sales roles are feeling like they understand the value? I'm going to just jump in right here and say, I'm not in a sales role. I'm in a marketing role. And I think that this is probably where some breakout sessions can really be very helpful. For instance, I mean, a sales methodology is probably, I mean, I would like to know what the methodology is that they're using. Do I need to sit through a 90-minute session on how to apply that? Probably not. But I will let Sam, it looks like she has some stuff that she wants to say, so I will allow her to take it.
I think it just is about curating the content and making sure the sessions, like to Leah's point, align with, you have to have sessions for everybody. If you're going to ask them to attend this, like for us for a week, I'm not going to make somebody who's in the gaming vertical, who's an SE, sit through a sales methodology for the gaming or for the industrial. Like you just have to really know your audience and make sure that, yeah, you're paying attention and you know what their needs are too. So talking to their managers and the heads of their departments to see like what are they struggling on, and curating sessions around what can help them be better for the year is super important too.
Great. So I think that is all the questions. We will, when we send out our follow-up tomorrow, please feel free to respond to that and we can get those questions over to Sam or Heather to answer. I'm going to give a quick plug. Both of our lovely Guru customers here made a great sales play that I will not try to, but definitely want to invite you to give Guru a whirl. The bit.ly link is Guru Trial, capitalize SKO, or you can just go to our homepage. It is very easy to sign up for a trial. It's a wonderful piece of technology, and I love using it. Not just because I work here, but because it's great. So with that, I want to thank you all for all of your time, especially Sam and Heather for agreeing to spend an hour with everyone. And happy SKO planning to everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.